We are launching a mini series and it is all about taste. The first lesson in this mini series is going to be about body and mouthfeel. Now we're going to cover how to best experience body and mouthfeel within the cup of coffee that you have. We're also going to be talking about if higher elevation coffees or lower elevation coffees have more or less body and mouthfeel. Then we're going to be talking about the variables that affect body within your coffee, like brewing and roasting. And then we're going to dive into our new Brazil Natural, which is a women produced and women owned farm, and it is incredibly tasty. So thanks for joining us. Let's get to it. Now, the first thing that we want to cover is how to taste for body and mouthfeel and how to best do that. So what you want to do is brew a cup of coffee however you prefer to do so. And once you have that coffee, you are going to take a drink and let it sit in your mouth. You're then going to see how that feels on your tongue. Is it watery and light? Is it oily? Is it heavy and syrupy? And you're just going to let it kind of swirl and sit on your palate. You're then going to just identify one variable, which is going to be how does it make your mouth feel? Is it heavy? Does it feel like it's watery? Does it feel really creamy and rich and kind of like there's some weight on your tongue? Or does it just slish and slosh around in your mouth? That's going to be the best way to identify how to taste for mouthfeel. Now, body is kind of the weight in which the coffee has. And so a heavier bodied coffee typically comes for higher elevation, which we'll kind of dive into here in a minute. But that's going to be kind of the best first step is take a drink, swish it around in your mouth, let it sit on your tongue, don't swish it around, and just experience the sensations that you have with that coffee on your mouth. Now, swallow it. The next thing I want you guys to do once you swallow that coffee that's been sitting in your mouth is see how it lingers. Does it finish really clean and crisp? Does it linger and have some lasting effects that you still have those tasting notes left on your palate? Does it have some lingering acidity where it makes either the tip of your tongue or the sides of your tongue want to curl? How does that feel when it finishes? That's the next step. Now, to repeat steps 1 and 2, I want you guys to then slurp the coffee really loudly into your mouth. That's going to spray and aerate the coffee similar to what you do with wine when you pour it through an aerator or open up a bottle and let it breathe. It's going to do the same thing for coffee. That air is going to enhance and activate it as it sprays over your palate. And then repeat steps 1 and 2. So let it swirl and swish around your tongue and on your palate. Notice if it's light, watery, crisp. Note if it's heavy, oily, if it's metallic at all, and then swallow it and see if it lingers, how it finishes. Does it have, how does it finish? The coffee that we brought to you guys is a Brazil Natural. It finishes really clean and crisp. It also has a lighter body. Now we're gonna talk about why that is. Why it has a lighter body is mainly from the elevation that it's grown at. Lower elevation coffees are going to have less body. Higher elevation coffees are going to have more body. So again, higher elevation coffees typically are more tropical and fruity, and they're going to have more body associated with them. Lower elevation coffees are going to be lighter and cleaner and have a lot less of those really bright acidic notes. Now, this is a natural, so we still get some of those fruit notes that we experience on there. This has a really light butterscotch sweetness to it, and it also has some really good peach and plum, not plum, but some peach notes. And so it is a really tasty coffee with a lighter body, and that's from the elevation. Now, stepping back into some of the words that we use, I've kind of already explained them. You can click on the link in the email that we sent you guys for the coffee sensory lexicon. That's going to give you some official terminology to use for body and mouthfeel, but these are some of the words that I've already kind of been describing that we use to taste for body and mouthfeel. So, skipping back into the variables that affect body and mouthfeel. The first we've kind of already mentioned, which is elevation. Higher elevation coffees, more body. Lower elevation coffees, less body, going to be a lot lighter and cleaner and a softer finish. Almost tea-like is some of the terms that can be used within coffee, or floral, very delicate. A heavier bodied coffee is going to have a lot more weight to it. It's going to have a longer finish and it's typically going to have more of those fruit and tropical notes associated with it as well. So the next variable, we've got elevation. The next one that we're going to get into is brewing method. An immersion brewing method where the coffee is completely immersed in water and set in there for a specific amount of time is going to give it more body. And that's because those oils are going to have longer to release. And typically with immersion brewing, you're going to have a metal filter, think like a French press, that's going to allow those oils to seep into your coffee and not be filtered out into a really fine paper filter. The next way that you can brew your coffee is by a pour over. There's a variety of ways to do that, but that's typically done through a really fine filter, and it's typically paper. That's going to pull some of those oils out of your coffee, and the water is just passing through the grounds. It's not sitting in there like an immersion. So the pour over methods are going to have a lighter body and a lighter mouthfeel, and the immersion is going to give yourself a heavier body and heavier mouthfeel. So if you want to get more body out of a coffee, try an immersion like an AeroPress or French press. If you want a lighter body, try a pour over, a V60, or try our origami dripper with a flat or cone bed. Super versatile brewer. I can't speak highly enough about it. Now the next thing is roasting. We kind of dived into that last week, but if you're just joining us this week, first of all, welcome. And second of all, roasting has a big impact on the body. I can really draw out that roast profile and associate more body into that coffee with a darker roast. But if you think about it, an espresso roast, or what you typically think of for an espresso or French roast, I hate the word espresso roast because I use any coffee for espresso. However, for a French roast, it's really dark and oily. Those oils are exactly going to be what gives it that body. And so it's going to be really roasty and oily and rich and creamy. And that's going to be a much heavier body. A lighter roasted coffee is not going to allow those oils to seep out into the external part of the bean as much, because it's not going to be activated throughout that long roasting process. So a lighter roasted coffee is going to be a lot brighter, crisper, and have more poppy acidity notes, as opposed to a darker, longer roast, which is going to pull out more of those oils and compounds. So those are the three variables that affect body and mouthfeel. The first is going to be elevation, the second is going to be brewing method, the third is going to be roast. We have the coffee sensory lexicon that's going to give us some verbiage to use, as well as the verbiage I've already explained. And next is how to taste for mouthfeel and body, which we covered. Step 1, take a drink, let it swirl around your mouth, see how it feels. Step 2, swallow, see how it finishes. Step 3, spray it over your mouth with a large slurping, just like that. And that's going to activate and aerate that coffee, and then repeat steps 1 and 2, letting it sit on your mouth and drink it. Next, really quickly, we're going to dive into our Brazil Natural. It's a women-produced, it's a women-owned coffee farm. We're big in supporting women-owned things. My wife and I own this business together, and so we try to support other women-owned things. The coffee is amazing. It's a much lighter coffee, and it sits on your tongue, not too heavy. It's really tasty. You guys can read more up on the farm, and it is a special deal. It's been passed down from her grandmother and kept in the family, and now the producer, which we have a picture of her, and the farmer is all women owned. So it's an awesome farm, it's an awesome organization. Cafe Delas is the through Olam is who we used, and it supports, and a lot of that money goes back to the women owned farms and producers. And so thanks so much for being a part of supporting them as well. If you guys have any questions or want to reach out to me with any suggestions, please feel free to. I hope you guys are enjoying this mini series that we're launching on. It's going to be all about taste, how to build a palate, what different things we can taste within our coffee, and how to get the most out of it. So thanks so much for being a part of it and supporting our small business. You guys mean the world to me, so have a great week.